Hi friends, I hope this video finds you well. I had a plan to send a video to you for the newsletter last week, but so many exciting things were happening last week that I wanted to wait and share them with you. One thing that I did last week was I went to Denver with my husband and I had a photo shoot, sort of like a brand photo shoot to capture a new brand that I'm launching. I don't even know really when I'm launching, probably when I get the photos. I've been working on the website copy also, but as you know already, it's called Laura the EXPLORA, and the whole concept is asking core human questions to move the human heart, exploring things like what leads to lasting happiness, how do I find my purpose, all the things that some of us seekers ask endlessly, myself included. It was really fun doing the photo shoot. I don't know about you, but I love having my photos taken in a way that's sort of like a collaborative, creative process with another person, the other person being the photographer. And this was nothing short of amazing. The woman I worked with, her name is Sarah, and my marketing and branding expert Olivia was also there, and so is my husband, and it was just this amazing collaborative effort of throwing on different outfits and running around and throwing cards and capturing all sorts of photos. I have no idea what they're gonna look like. I haven't seen them yet, but I will share them with you when I do, and I'm really excited. I went into the photo shoot with a certain intention because I think it's really easy to just feel not beautiful throughout the day in your life. Even this morning I woke up and I had these puffy eyes and dark circles under my eyes and I didn't feel beautiful, and we can compare ourselves to filtered pictures and people who have had their makeup done for the prior 2 hours to a red carpet and all the lighting and all of that. And I felt like I didn't want to think about what side of my face is prettier that I'm going to show towards the camera. None of that. It was all about capturing a certain kind of energy, and I wanted that energy to be playful, I wanted it to be vulnerable and silly, and I wanted to feel like I wasn't afraid to try things that might look absolutely ridiculous, because that's kind of what I want to do with this brand also. I don't want to be afraid to try new things, to share parts of myself, self that's vulnerable and scary, and explore the messiness of being human, both the messiness of being joyful and the messiness of being flawed. So that's what I went into the photo shoot with as my intention, and I feel like it captured that. So anyway, I'm excited to see the photos and share them with you and get some feedback. And then after that in Denver, Adrian and I flew to San Francisco, where we went to a conference called Wisdom 2.0. And the concept of the conference is approaching daily life, entrepreneurship, busy schedules from the perspective of ancient wisdom, mindfulness, meditation, Buddhism. A lot of my favorite teachers were there. And to see them in person after having read a lot of their material, following interviews on podcasts or online meditations that they guide people through, I was totally blown away on multiple respects, either way. One was that you can really tell when somebody has dedicated their life to practice, and they've done it a lot. They don't just talk about this stuff, they've done it. They don't just talk about loving kindness and compassion or forgiveness or loving yourself. They do it, and it gives them this whole different air of being. And it actually, contrary to what I would have thought, and maybe what some of you would think also, it doesn't make them more removed. It doesn't look like they're sitting on some kind of pedestal or floating on a cloud or their meditation cushion is levitating. None of that. It makes them a lot more human and a lot more humble. A lot of them just kind of had this deep groundedness and were willing to say, essentially, I don't know. Explore that for yourself. Or I do know there was the sense that they've experienced everything in their life so deeply that they really could relate to somebody else's experience. They really knew what it was like to dive into that negative self-talk and then learn to relate to it differently. They really knew suffering. They didn't shy away from talking about what's been happening in Parkland with the high schoolers and the shooting, or the diversity and race in our country. They really leaned into those subjects and weren't devastated by suffering, didn't just dwell in it, but recognized it, felt it deeply, and then had a bit of a rallying of, and now what do we do? What can you do as the individual to become more awake to these experiences and then to take action? That was another thing that was really surprising, is they think there's a huge misconception that mindfulness and Buddhism is all about being really passive, and it's not. It's about being active. It's about being aware. So sitting in the present moment with a type of non-judgmental awareness that allows you to see things more clearly without all the beliefs and the stories that we throw into things about who we are, who we think other people are, what this means, who's to blame. Seeing it stripped away of all those stories and instead asking, and now what's the right action to move forward? So to be, as you can imagine, amidst that vibe, that atmosphere, was so heartwarming, overwhelming at times, and really just lovely. And I wrote down some notes afterwards to try and process, how do I walk away from this experience and actually apply some of these things to my life, as opposed to having just been there and yay, conference, and taking the swag and heading back to my house. I really want to integrate some of these lessons. And I saw some people that I want to role model even more, that I want to be a part of the next generation of people sharing wisdom. And one thing that was huge for me that a couple of teachers shared and repeated was essentially that I've had a lot of insecurity with, well, who am I to share this wisdom, which is called Dharma in Buddhism. I believe it's Sanskrit, but it means wisdom, the teachings. Who am I to share them? Some 29-year-old living in the mountains of Colorado who traipsed across the world for a couple of years and, still doesn't really know who she is, which isn't important, by the way. That's a distraction. But one thing that they shared was that, in a sense, none of us is really worthy to share wisdom, but somebody has to. And it might as well be you, and you might as well start where you are right now. Don't wait to be the perfect person that you're trying to be. In fact, stop trying to be perfect. Start where you are right now and share the things that you're learning from your own experience. Meditation is really rooted in an experiment. Try these things. Don't just repeat dogma. See what it's like for you and your body as you use it across a multitude of experiences, when you're suffering, when you're joyful, when you're anything in between, and then share what you learn with others. Learning things like, I don't need to believe my thoughts. They don't actually arise from me. They come from a whole host of conditioning, past experiences, things that have been modeled for me. I can let that go and continue to choose who I want to be, even as those thoughts arise, those negative thoughts, that instead of getting wrapped up in it, I can look at it and think to myself, oh, that's an interesting thought, and move on and not give it any more weight. That's something that I've experienced in my practice. And it's okay for me to pass it on. There isn't some graduation program that I'm going to go through and then I'll get a cap and a gown and a certificate that says, hooray, you can now teach wisdom. It's sort of like, know that you will always be flawed, in a sense that nobody is worthy of teaching these wonderful things. Worthy in the sense that nobody's enlightened. Well, okay, I take that back. That's a more complicated subject, but I'm not a fully enlightened being, and I'm going to be flawed, and I'm going to teach it wrong, and I'm going to have mistakes, and I'm going to lead people astray. That's okay. Do it anyway. That was really powerful for me. Let me just see if I have anything else in my notes. One thing, okay, I'll just go on this little sharing of what I learned, and then you can see from the newsletter I put in some bullet points also of things that I had learned. But I really love the intersection of psychology and Buddhism, or practice or Zen, whatever. And the research that's being done in this space is really phenomenal. And I feel like we're kind of at this exciting time where a lot of burgeoning tools and research are coming online and helping us understand these things that were once considered woo-woo. And there are a lot of things that are still considered woo-woo that we can't scientifically prove. I think it's up to each person to try and see what makes sense for them, and leads to less suffering for them and kind of this greater sense of connectedness to themselves and others. One researcher who's the first person to speak at the conference, his name is Daniel Siegel, Dan, and he's written tons of books, and he's actually a psychiatrist, but he does research in meditation and mindfulness, among other things. And he basically proved that at a scientific level, we are all connected. And to be honest, I don't really remember the specifics enough to repeat them for you. I'm going to have to look it up for myself. But in Buddhism, and some people would say in kind of a new age spiritualiness, that there's a lot of talk of kind of the infinite and potential and being connected and sort of things that go against what our society and our egos tell us, which is you are an individual being and you have your own degree of choice in life, and life is under your control. And he was basically sharing research that said that's not the case, that we are in fact all connected, even on a scientific level. Again, I wish I had greater language to share this, but I'm going to go out on a limb and start the conversation. And that we come from kind of this plane of infinite potential, and we're just different expressions of that potential arising. And the cool thing was, he said that when we have, and we all do, beliefs and patterns and constructs of who we think we are in this world, they kind of create this plateau. They don't allow us to dip into this infinite potential that we all have access to, that we've all been birthed from. And through contemplative practice and embodiment practices, there are all sorts of things that can get you into this state of mind of being free from your conditioned thoughts. We can tap back into that potential. So anyway, again, I'll have to look more into it, but essentially what I took away from it, and what I have felt in my experience, and maybe you have too, is that I am so much more than the beliefs in my head. I'm so much more than the limiting thoughts I have about who I am, what I can accomplish, what I can do. And that's why with Laura the Explorer, I'm looking to really make a practice of challenging these things within myself, within others, within the world. And that's a scary thing to do. It's a scary thing to challenge the thought that I'm bad at math, or the thought that nobody's going to want to watch a video of me talking, which still could be true, but that's why I'm experimenting. And by challenging these beliefs, we start tapping into that infinite potential. And I'm just learning more and more that we don't know what's possible until we try. And in the practice of trying, we will inherently learn things. We will become different people, maybe even better people along the way. We'll know more about ourselves. That's how I feel in writing a book. That's how I feel in writing a movie script. That's how I feel in doing acting and live performances for people about a story of my life. That's how I feel about creating this platform and starting more of a dialogue and sharing these thoughts with you, is that I can sit in my office chair and tell myself all the reasons why this won't work. Trust me, I can come up with hundreds. That's easy, right? The hard thing to do is to actually challenge those beliefs, take that laundry list, be like, all right, I see you, I recognize you, I'm gonna set you aside, and I'm gonna try it anyway. I'm gonna challenge this fear, this roadblock that I have, and relate to it differently, realizing that I'm probably gonna be fearful even while I'm doing these things. I'm probably gonna try and sabotage my own attempt to be great, to express the things that are within my heart, and that's okay. I'm gonna see that, I'm gonna relate to it differently, I'm gonna thank it, and I'm gonna keep moving regardless. So just a reminder to you that no matter what it is you want to do, no matter what you feel called to try, if you do love acting and performing, if you really want to write a book to help other people because other people have helped you, Recognize all the limiting thoughts that come up of why that's a terrible idea, and then choose to set them aside and do it anyway. The only way that will ever be accomplished is if you do it. That's what I keep telling myself every day. That's one of the main messages I took away from Wisdom 2.0. Same with deciding to be somewhat of a messenger with this wisdom. Who am I to do this? Do it anyway. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to write that book that's in your head. And the only person who's going to do it is you. So, my loves, there was so much more from the conference, but I just wanted to share that little snippet with you. I'm sure more of the messages will continue to filter through over the weeks. We'll have another video next week. I'll get us back on schedule. But thank you for letting me take this time to go and nourish my soul and then share some of these things with you. It's still scary. That's okay. I'm choosing to do it anyway, and I'm so grateful that you're with me along this ride. I think that our hearts over time are going to continue to open more widely because that's what our world needs from us. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I love you guys. Let me know if you have any thoughts based on this video, and I'll see you next week. Mwah!